So how can hooks help us? Hooks are special functions provided by VTest and also by Jest. And there are 4 hooks we can use. Before all, before each, and we need to import them all from VTest. And then we also got after each and after all. Now these functions can be executed to register other functions that should be executed either before all tests run, before every single test, after every single test, or after all tests executed. And to show you how those hooks work before we then use them to fix this problem, let's add them here. You simply add them by executing before all, and then you pass a function to before all, and that's the function that will be executed once before all the tests are executed. And here I will just log before all so that we can see that this function executed and that it only executed once. Now we also have before each. Again, we pass a function to before each, and in there I will console log before each. And then we can do the same with after each and after all. We pass a function to after each, and there I will log after each, and we pass a function to after all, and I will log after all. That's how you add these hooks. You add them just like this directly in the testing file, though if you would have a file with multiple testing suites, you could also add them on a suite level. So inside of that describe function, which you saw earlier in the course already. If you add these hooks in a suite, they apply to that suite only. If you add them like this, like we're doing it here, directly in a file, in the overall testing file, they will apply to all the tests in the file. That's how this works. So now before using these hooks to fix the problem, let's see what happens if I now run npm test again. You will see that now if you scroll up a little bit, those hooks will have been executed. Scroll up a bit further, and here you see before all, then before each and after each, once for every single test we have. So before each and after each are executed multiple times. And then at the end, after all our tests have been executed, after all is executed once. You might have to scroll a bit to find this because in watch mode your tests may be executed multiple times, but ultimately you should find after all, before all, and all these before each and after each calls. So that shows us how these hooks are executed and that they are executed. And we can now move on to fixing this problem, this failing test which we have with help of these hooks. So how do we want to fix the problem we have? Well, it would make sense to kind of reset our user after every test so that changes made to the user in one test don't affect any other tests. And the after each hook sounds perfect for that. We can go to this hook, and there we might want to set user equal to a new user again. So we copy this code, set it equal to a new user again, and since I'm assigning a new value to user, I'll change it from a constant to a variable so that I can assign a new value here. That's how we would clean up our user after every test, and if we save this, we see that all our tests pass again, and we have no failing test anymore because now we are properly resetting our users. So that is where such hooks can shine. Of course, as an alternative to resetting after every test, we could have also reset it at the beginning of every test. We could create a new user right before a new test executes. And if we do that, all our tests pass again. Because that's basically the equivalent. We can clean up after a test or right before the next test. Either way, we're working with a valid user. So that's how we can use before each and after each, and that is where those hooks can shine. Now we could use before all for some overall initialization. There is nothing wrong with creating the user globally like this, but keep in mind that you might also sometimes have multiple suites and you might not want a global value in the overall testing file like this, but you might want to have some general shared value for a specific suite. And maybe multiple suites should share the same variable with different values though. For such scenarios, you could declare a variable globally in your file, but then to define it and set a value locally inside of before all. And then you would have a user for all your tests. And if you had multiple suites, every suite could get its own user with the same shared global variable. Here in this file, it of course doesn't matter, but it can sometimes matter, and before all can simply be used to initialize some value that should be used in all or most of your tests. If you use before all, it again works. Well, and after all could be great for some general cleanup work. Let's say you have some tests where you create some testing database before all your tests are executed. And once your test's finished, you want to erase that database so that nothing is saved on your file system. Then you could perform such cleanup work in after all. So these are these 4 hooks which you should know. They can help you with initialization and cleanup work either before or after all tests or before and after every single test.